the God zone for me is the zone where you come in and you lead from, you speak from, you live from, you operate from your deepest, most aligned, authentic truth. And so God zone for me is truth frequency. And when I connect into the essence of like the frequency of the God zone, there's also this knowing that we're never separate from. We're never separate from God. And it's like, what do I choose? Do I choose to operate from this knowing, from this divine truth of knowing that God's within me? Truth is within me. Sacred wisdom is within me. Am I operating from the truth of who I am versus, again, this conversation of like outside of self? Am I trusting in my own pathway versus somebody else's pathway? Or like you said, that shiny object over here, or they've got it and I don't. So God zone for me is understanding who you are, understanding who we all are, understanding that I am divine and you are divine, that we are human, that we are divine, that God is part of your makeup. Like you are God, God is you. And into that like deep connection of when I operate from truth, when I operate in this frequency, when I'm operating, leading with truth, trust, faith, I'm never going to be led astray.
Welcome to It's Not What You Think, the podcast that takes you on a transformative journey to rewrite your story of greatness and reawaken your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Celine DaCosta, a subconscious mind expert, master coach, and believer in the limitless power and magic that lives within all of us. My intention in this podcast is to propel you into your next level of success so that you are free to create the life that your heart most desires. Through deep, actionable insights, personal stories, and world-class guests, I'll provide you with the tools, strategies, and resources you need to unlock the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime so that you can consciously design a reality that is beyond what you could have ever dreamed of. Join me on this journey to personal growth and evolution, and let's live our lives in accordance with our highest soul's calling. This podcast is your weekly check-in to help this path become more simple, obtainable, and fun. Thank you for tuning in today. And now let's dive in. Hello, soul family, and welcome back to It's Not What You Think. Today, I have a supernova, Jaclyn Shaw. She is a 7-figure spiritual mentor and teacher, and I'm going to tell you a story about how I came to have Jaclyn on today's podcast, because today I even get goosebumps as I'm about to say this. We are going to be talking all things God, being in the flow state zone, how to really just deepen your connection with the divine. So, hi, Jaclyn. I'm going to tell a story about you, but just want you to say hi.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here, and I already like really feel the energy we're going to drop into today, so I can't wait.
Like actual chills as even I was speaking. I'm like, oh, what's going on? I have goosebumps. So let's dive in. How did I meet Jaclyn? So I met Jaclyn through a mutual friend, Melanie Ann Layer. She was actually on the podcast just a few months ago. And I remember asking her, hey, Mel, can you tell me who needs to be on this podcast? And she's like, Jaclyn Shaw. And at the time, it was right before my sabbatical. So I was like, yeah, okay. Okay, good to know. I'm noted. I'm thinking about it. And then like moving on with life. And then a couple months later, Melanie had this like mystery offer, and just on a whim, intuitively, I purchased it. Turns out it was called the GodZone, and it was co-led with Jaclyn. And I'm just leisurely watching this thing, and I'm mostly doing Melanie's modules, and I'm like, who's Jaclyn? I remember Melanie mentioning I needed to know her. So I tune in. This woman, it's like minute 10, and I'm like, whoa. Okay, ooh, I got chills even as I'm saying this. All right. Okay, fine. And then she says something. She's talking in the call about death, and I'm like, okay, interesting. And then she says in the book At Home with God by Neil Donald Walsh, blah 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 blah. And at this point, immediately, I'm like, I'm purchasing this book. I've read the Conversations with God books, and they touched me so deeply, but I never got farther than that. But I was like, I need to read this book. Thank you, Jaclyn. And then I start to read this book, and I'm like, okay, we need to get in on a conversation, because I feel that this is a conversation that needs to be had out loud in public, which is what I usually do with this podcast is I bring those behind the door conversations out loud in unconventional ways. So that's how me and Jaclyn are coming to have this conversation. She's in Costa Rica. I'm in Colombia. We're going to make some magic. And before we dive into the questions, Jaclyn, would you mind to formally introduce yourself? Tell us what it is that you do, what lights you up right now, and share with us a little bit about who you are.
Oh my gosh, I would absolutely love to do that. And as I do, I also have to share like, I love this experience. I love the storytelling. I love how we became connected. And this is part of the conversation that I'm sure we'll dive into is like just following those threads. And I often hear this about my work. People are like, I don't even know how I found you, or I came into this program and then I got to dive into work with you. And like all of a sudden, it's like you were what my soul was really craving. And so I love that you found me in this way, and we just get to allow things to unravel from there. And so I came into the online industry as a business mentor, and I had an in-person business prior to, like a in-person, it was a clothing store. And then I came into online and I started entering the mentorship space, and was very much through like the business lens. And as I dove in, I was like, okay, like the energetics, the conversations around energetics, this is where I really started to see massive shifts in people. And then one day, literally, the Conversations with God books dropped, like his trilogy, 3 books dropped on my foot. I was renting this cottage, the books dropped on my foot. I started reading, and I instantly knew, like, I'm here to bring forward more than traditional business type of coaching and mentorship, and really in this GodZone frequency and conversations around God and spirituality and sharing my journey with, that connection and bringing really divinity forward from within me. And at the point where the Conversations with God books landed at my feet, I had gotten lost in the online world. Like, I feel like I had lost my true, like, soul voice because I started to go outside of myself. I started to follow other people's pathways. And so it really became the journey of standing in self and in conviction of self and trust in self and moving from divine nature and divine intuition. And so now, all that being said, this is what I really guide others in, is tapping into the sacred wisdom within them. And from there, a lot of my clients still tend to be entrepreneurs, leaders in whatever way that they're leading, but really interested in, okay, moving from the divine within them and feeling that deeper connection to the God within.
God, I freaking love that introduction. Beautiful. And it brings us right into what I wanted to talk to you about. So, before we dive into the deep end of things, it feels important for us to broad stroke define some of the terms that we are going to be diving into, right? So, the first thing I'm really curious about, if you can decrypt to someone who's never heard of the Conversations with book series with God series, what are the Conversations with God books? Let's start there.
Okay, perfect. And the Conversations with God books, like, they've really been instrumental for me. I've studied Neil Donald Walsh's work for 7 or 8 years now. I mean, that was 2017. So yeah, about 8 years now. He's been my personal mentor for the past 2 years. So his work has really profoundly impacted me. And that being said, that day when they fell, like when the books fell at my feet, like the word God did not connect with me, like did not resonate. Like I picked it up and was like, Conversations with God? Like, what is this? I grew up, Catholic upbringing, church. I left the church when I was 12 because I didn't feel connected to what I was being taught about religion and God. And I went on my own journey and own pathway, I would say. And then I picked up this book and I just opened it to a page and I was like, huh, this man feels like he's having a conversation with the God that I always believed existed, but was taught otherwise. And so I ended up reading the book, and I was like, what the, like, it honestly felt, it just felt like such truth resonating within me. And the Conversations with God books that are written by Neil Donald Walsh, I mean, I don't even know if you would say written. He definitely doesn't say written by Neil Donald Walsh. It's literally books where he's having conversations with God about universal truths, spiritual nature, like who we truly are as human beings and soul led beings.
Mhm, mhm. What I really love about when you share that the book literally fell on your feet, it reminds me of this time. So I started my spiritual journey when I was 18, and I was really blessed to have a friend of my father who was one of those people that are so deeply wise, so deeply embodied, so divinely connected that you're like, how are you not a guru? I don't get it. But they choose to not be in the limelight, and I was so blessed to have someone take me under the wing and teach me the foundations of yoga meditations. He would always talk to me about God, and I would feel triggered for reasons I want to share about later. And he would always tell me about this book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And he would share principles and concepts from that. And I remember saying, nope, nope, not available. Woo woo, I don't want it. Da, 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 da. And in 2017, I was in a yoga shala and I was laying down, how you lay down in like a circle with yoga, some depending when it's like a round shala. And this book literally almost fell on my head. It was just about to drop. And I was like, oh, this book's about to fall on my head. It's Autobiography of a Yogi. And then, of course, I read it. It completely changed my life and it completely transformed the way I related to myself, to spirituality, to universe. And so that's one of the things that I really want to highlight because it's super special that found you. And zooming in specifically with conversations with God, I also wanted to share that. I love hearing your story for the first time because I also grew up Roman Catholic. And I left the church when I was 14 because of it's too rigid, it's too restricted. I feel suffocated. I don't get it. And I have had a triggered, complicated, crunchy relationship with the concept, the word God for pretty much up until a year and a half ago. And in the world, I remember I was commenting this to my friend the other day is that I used to use the word universe and source, not because that was my preferred word of choice, but because I wanted to not say God, but talk about the thing, but
Yeah.
without saying God because there was such a trigger around it. And so I'm curious because I see you're nodding, you're nodding your head. So I feel you know exactly what I'm talking about. Can we can you share what's going on with the word God and why are we feeling so icky about it and like on a collective level that we can't even freaking say the word and not feel good about it?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I am nodding and nodding and nodding my head over here. I mean, I have goosebumps. The fact that you said like the book fell out for you in 2017, like it was also 2017 for me. I was renting this cottage and I had been renting it for a month. And I think I was 3 weeks in and the book fell out. And I was like, it didn't fall out of the shelf like on day one. It was like the timing was so perfect. And
Yeah, my entire body's covered, by the way. Like I'm covered in
yeah,
truth
and it's
bumps.
and it's also but, like, this is this is how it happens, like, even you said how you found me, it was, like, so divinely led, and my journey with God, I mean, I shared a little bit, but so then the Conversations with God books, like, I just did a deep dive into all of his books, um, and so I started to develop my own relationship with God, and yet, to the outside, it was very much like universe was really universe, spirit, were the words I used because it was the fear of the judgment around saying God, because, and this answers your question here, feeling like we're going to be misunderstood. So if I say God, are people thinking that I mean the God who we've been taught is like, believes in sin, is the almighty punisher. And like that is not the God that I know at all. And so I think this is why saying God and using that word, it's like, well, it can be so, are people going to think this? Are people going to think that? And this is where I believe that each and every one of us coming forward in our truth and in our power and saying the words that really feel like depth of connection and frequency for us, like that's actually really important. And I had this conversation with Neil probably about a year ago about this. I was like, you could have called your books Conversations with the Universe, Conversations with Spirit, thinking, that more people would naturally pick that up. And it would have done, in my opinion, such an disservice to the book, such a disservice to you, to anyone who's reading those books, because the moment we step out of our truth a little bit, by shifting one word, by diluting one word, there's an energy behind that that's felt. And it's our job, I feel like, to stand in our power and to come forward and to really say like what it is for us, what our experience is. And so for me, when I really stepped in and started using the word God, I also use the word often connected with God. It's like for me, it's the God within me. And this was also a huge shift in my journey, shifting from God lives outside of me and God is this like almighty powerful being and I'm not. Like when I saw God outside of me, it didn't feel powerful. I actually felt, I don't want to say powerless, but it felt like, okay, I don't know. I don't have the wisdom within me. I'm not a creator. And so I need to like go to God in order to create. I need to go to God in order to fill in the blank. And then when I shifted and really understood like God lives within me, God's part of me, God's part of you. Well, then it's like I'm never without. All lives within. I have access to the sacred wisdom within. I have access to harnessing my personal power within. I have access, like I am the creator. God's from within me.
Hmm. I love that. Thank you. You know, there's a few things my brain's like flagging this, and this. Here's where I want to start. When you were saying that so many people they feel afraid to just use the word God, and it's like there's a wobble of if I say this word, what are people going to think? Or even, I think there's a couple different narratives in here. It's like, what are people going to think? As well as, am I sure? Like,
Yes.
do I even
Yes.
why even believe in this? Like, so there's like like, and you're right, because one of the things that I teach around in my work is I teach people communication, heart-led communication and storytelling. And you can teach strategies and blah blah blah. But the thing is that at the foundation of potent communication is being able to hold the frequency of what you're saying. Hello, soul family. I hope you're loving this episode so far. Before we dive back in, I'd love to share with you one of my most popular and beloved free resources on how to stand out and magnetize your dream clients with your irresistible story. Because here's the thing, you have a powerful story inside of you. There's no doubt about that. But the question is, are you telling it in a way that empowers you? And not only that, that connects with and compels your audience. Whether you are a business owner or a leader who's in charge of influencing others, this masterclass will propel you in the direction of becoming someone who tells compelling stories that change people's lives, starting with your own. This is the secret sauce to standing out in a crowd of sameness and being seen as a go-to expert. Because here's the truth, if you don't own your story, it will own you. So if you're ready to step into your truth and tell your story unapologetically and confidently without the wobbles, start here. Go to the show notes or type in the link, CelineDaCosta.com/free masterclass to dive in. Enjoy. And now let's get back into the episode. And so it's the frequency between the words. So I could say God, but it's like, like if the frequency just goes, because underneath it, if we were to double click on that frequency, it would be like, but I'm not sure what's going on. So I want to pull this thread with you, Jaclyn, like pull this thread because I know there's people listening and they're like, I just got called out. I'm not sure. Or like, yeah, I don't know what. So if we just kind of like keep going down that rabbit hole, what would people think? Why are you not sure? So
Yeah.
based on your experience with this, if we were to be the voice in people's head right now and actually like put that in the light, what's going on?
Well, I think it's also important to share like everything's a journey, right? Like everything's a journey here. And so if I had read Conversations with God and I was like, yes, like this is the essence of God, and then I went and used the word God outward at that time, I was still wobbly. Like I was still wobbly in my faith. I was still wobbly in that conviction. And even though I was feeling my personal connection to God, it's like, okay, but like what's on top of that? Like, and it wasn't like a what if I'm wrong? What if God doesn't exist? But it's like, it almost felt such a personal journey that was like, okay, there's still things that I'm navigating for myself. There's still, some triggers in the word God for me. There's still things that I'm going to say I'm not understanding, but not from the place of like, oh, we need to know everything and understand before we go say God. But it was like I was still in the space of myself of like, I'm just navigating this right now. And that's how I feel. It's like, well, we're in the navigation, like there's no right or wrong here. And so while you're navigating, if you feel called to use the word God, use the word God. And if you feel called not to, because you're in the space of navigating, like we get to honor that as well. Where the frequency becomes off is when you feel like, for me, there was definitely a point where it was like, it is absolutely God. God is my word. And I'm not using it because of the fear associated with it, or I'm not using it because of this. That's where that disconnection comes in, because then I'm not willing to stand in my truth. But we get to, you know, grow on this journey. And then we get to, I mean, I'm just going to tell you, it feels so completely free when we're so willing to own our truth in this way. Even, you know, I lead in so many different conversations. Like I said, I first came into the online space as a business coach and very much in like traditional type of business coaching. And you found me through a course called GodZone. And you mentioned like I don't even remember this, but like that I was talking about death. And my dad died a year and a half ago, and that opened up a whole new journey for me in navigating what my soul knows about death and what, the human experience of death is. And I created a space where I'm so free that I showed up and I recorded podcasts about this and about navigating my experience with death. Well, I couldn't do that before if I was fitting into this box of there's things I'm allowed to talk about, there's things I should do, there's things I should stay away from, because what are other people like? Other people don't have maybe the same beliefs with me around death. And so using that as the example, but it's like the more that we give ourselves permission to be like the full expression of who we are, to share our truth in this way, it really just creates the frequency of freedom all around us.
Hmm. 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 I love this. And yeah, with this piece around what I really love, I love the way that you explain this in two parts. One is that there's a whole journey for those of us who, and if you're like, nope, God, not for me, universe all the way, like peace out, like that's totally fine too. But for those who are like, interesting, like what I hear, I'm going to speak to my journey before I speak to what I witnessed in other people, which is that I noticed that there was this texture of I'm not using the word God because I have a trigger around it. And doing the work that I do around the subconscious mind, I know better than if I have a trigger, if I have a resistance to something, I got to go into it, not run away from it. And I won't know my truth until I actually go through the resistance and I melt it away. In the sense that I could have gone through, in the journey of the world, God, word the word God and what it means to me, and then come out the other side and be like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go with the universe, and felt no charge around that, complete divine neutrality. But that's not what happened. I went into the trigger and I started unpack and I started to realize, wow, there is so much conditioning here around my Catholic background, around the belief systems that I was holding, around how the word God was being weaponized to manipulate me and people around me. And to be honest, the collective, I'm speaking to my personal experience here, to do certain things, to act a certain way, to behave and fit perfectly in a box. And that's what triggered me, is that I couldn't stand the way that that word was being weaponized for me to be a certain way and fit in a certain way. And that's what I was running away from. So it wasn't actually the word, it was what the word represented to me from my childhood conditioning. When I was able to unpack, excavate, and release, on a somatic nervous system level, do proper healing around it, and release the charge around that word and separate, here's my conditioning, here's this word. It gave me like a new sense of freedom. And this is where the Conversations with God book really assisted me, because as I was reading this book, I'm like, oh, so God is kind of like how I thought God should be. Like this sits in my nervous system. This is entering, and I am my body, my barometer to my soul, aka my body, is like ring, and it's perceiving this as truth. And so it was actually such an instrumental, these books were such an instrumental part of my journey to recalibrate my relationship with that word and what the frequency behind it actually was to me. Can't speak for anyone else, but then I started to see God Dio, and I'm multilingual. So Dio, Dios. You go to Brazil, and I find this to be so super unique. So I'm half Brazilian. You go to Brazil, and you're driving around, and everywhere you see these like Deus é tudo. God is everything. Deus é Pai, God is Father, which is a bit more of a Christian conditioning. But you basically see that the way that the word Dios is used is so much more liberal, and it's so much more accepted all over. Like you'll go to a store and it's like Deus te abençoe, like God bless you. And it's so much more freely used than what I noticed, what I witnessed in the United States, or in more like let's say like westernized countries. There's like a bit more like rigidity. So I started to also, as I travel, like notice this like collective, I don't want to use this. Like, do I put this? I want to say God bless you, but do I put this sign up? Because what if I like put off everyone that doesn't believe in God, right? And this like huge resistance. But here's what I found as I started to repair my relationship with that word. It's like what you were saying about, you said God is within. And even if you had said that to me 2 years ago, I would have agreed with you conceptually. I'm like, yeah, God is within. But when you said that, there was a felt like ring again in my body, because I can feel the place inside of me where I can feel God inside. And me repairing the relationship with the word and repairing my relationship with my Catholic background and the collective and individual trauma around that started to open up like this space inside of me where in my meditations, in my quiet time, I could start to feel that voice coming from within rather than without. And I see you nodding, so I don't have a question, but I'm going to pause because it feels like there's something important
There
you've got to
like,
say.
there is, like, so much within that I want to say, that I wanna, like, touch on. And I'm gonna start at the beginning, like where you said, like the resistance and that willingness when it's like, okay, I'm faced with that resistance. Can I go on that deeper journey in self to see what's really there? What's behind that? And then you led into, feeling that resonance of truth. And like this is how we operate. It's like we feel in frequency first. And so this is why it's so important, and why this conversation of like bringing your truth forward. The moment that you step away from your truth to appease others, to make it more comfortable, to make it softer, gentler, whatever it is, well, you're doing a disservice not only to yourself, but to the person on the other side. So thinking like, oh, will they receive that? How will they receive that? Can I just stand in this? Am I allowed to say that? What if they feel that? What if they no, like you are here. I am here. We are all here to be the fullest expression of who we are. Like this is part of our divine in nature, part of this divine experiment that I'm going to say here of like being human is like, can I be fully human and fully divine? Can I be in my truth, even when that means hard conversations, even when that feels scary, even when that feels uncomfortable? And gosh, you said something right there at the end. I'm gonna see if I can come back to it for a second. Oh gosh, came back to it right away. Um, when we speak, when we're in our truth, it gets to be received. And one thing that I often say is multiple truths get to coexist. So I don't need your
Mhm.
truth and my truth to be the same. But through you speaking your truth, I find my truth. Through me speaking my truth, you find your truth. And so you might have that ping listening, like you've said, like, oh, I feel it right here in my soul. I feel that God within. I get the goosebumps. I also have a client that I've worked with over the last couple years, and I love to share this story because it's so powerful in the sense like obviously, I mean, you've known me for 30 minutes. Your listeners have known me for 30 minutes. You came in, I talked about God, but I talk about God a lot. My journey with God, the healing, again, I lead from the God within me. And I have this client, and she came to me through a program with Melanie and through a mastermind. So she didn't like find me on the internet and say, Jack's my person, but she came into that space another collaboration with Melanie and Lair, and she was like, "Wow!" Like again, if I would have seen you on the internet, probably wouldn't have connected because of the way that you talk about God. And she's like, "I don't believe in God." And over the last 2 years, she's continued to work with me in different points in various ways, and she's came into one-to-one spaces with me. And coming into one-to-one spaces saying, I very much don't believe in God. And I continue to have conversations with her about what I feel in her energy and about how I feel she's being I wouldn't say like how she's being led by God, but I continue to use the word God in our mentorship and in our conversations. And we both can choose each other and flow within this way as a client, as a mentor, without her needing to believe what I believe. But I also then don't water things down. I don't stop using the word God because I share, like, yeah, this is what I feel. And she'll share something with me. I'm like, yeah, when I tune into that frequency and when I'm like connected to like that God within me, this is what I experience. This is what I feel. And so there's no trying to bring her on board and convince her that God exists, but I continue to be who I am. She continues to be who she is. And like we create magic in this way. And it's so extraordinary to me in the sense like she gets to be fully her. I get to be fully me. And we both are, thriving in that and trusting in that and allowing this to lead us in very different ways, but also together.
Hmm. I love what you're saying. Ah, goosebumps again. Whee! This whole conversation, like goosebump, blah, 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 blah. Every like few minutes, I'm like covered. Um, what I love about what you're saying is that both get to coexist, right? And it's not like, okay, I'm in the God Club, you ain't, so we can't talk, we can't have a conversation. It's about, well, this is how I hold reality. This is how you hold reality. But I think like the deeper golden nugget here is that I'm in my authenticity, you're in your authenticity, uncompromised, and when we relate from our authenticity, only our highest good can come from there. And my authenticity can be like, nope, not God. And your authenticity can be, yes, God. But here's the thing, Jaclyn. If I were to say my authenticity is no, not God, based on what the story I was sharing with you, that's not actually my authenticity. That was me being in resistance and turning my back on something that was in the shadows. That's not me being authentic. Me being authentic was going into the resistance, unpacking it, dissolving it from my body, and then in divine neutrality, in like total neutrality, no like charge around it, being like, yes, God. And I could have just in another universe could have equally gone through it and be like, no, that's not it. This is it, right? And I could have chosen something different, but the authenticity is where I was able to land in, because this is where I'm like, this doesn't, it feels crunchy and it feels like uncomfortable in your body when it's not actually your authentic truth. And when it's not your authentic truth, then it's very much worth going into the resistance and understanding why, because in the unpacking, you have golden nuggets. And so I want to pull on this thread a little bit and look, like, you don't know this about me, Jaclyn, but I'm a little bit I'm a challenger. Like that, this is what I do, right? Like I play the devil's advocate, pun intended. And I like to, these people who listen to this podcast, if this is your first podcast, then sorry, not sorry, but those who have been following me, they know that I like to like pull, that rock that's the red button that says, do not touch the red button. Like, do not go here. I will push the red button. I don't
Okay,
mind. I can be that person.
before you do, I have to show this because I mean, you can see the big smile on my face because I'm like, well, of course we're connected and having this conversation. Like, I often start my mentorship with Neil Donald Walshik, and I've told you I've studied his books. Like, I love his books, and I often start our conversations where I'm like, dude, like, read this in your book, and I actually feel different. Like, I feel this, and I often bring into him that like, not so sure about this, and then we have the most incredible conversation. So bring it. I'm here for this.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So here's something that when it comes to this God topic, I'm going to do my best to articulate this because it's a feeling. It's coming through in real time. So listener, please forgive me if I'm not being as articulate as you normally find me with these things. Okay. So around this God topic, right? What I've noticed is in recent years, this has been my observation. There's been this huge, almost like wave of people who are super, super into the new age spirituality, like the crystals and the universe, and more like, yeah, like the new age stuff. And then all of a sudden there's like this huge wave of people. And I don't know if it's just me. Let me know if you have this experience as well, that are just converting into born again Christians and like swinging on the other side of the pendulum of like Christianity. Jesus Christ is our savior. God is the one, and da 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 da. They're like, there's two different narratives going on. And also, I want a disclaimer that I love Jesus. Like Jesus Christ, my homie. Like I'm connected to that energy, Christ consciousness. And so I am here sitting like open to all of it. But there's something I've observed. There is this like slight energetic thing that I'm noticing. I'm super sensitive to energy, as I know you are as well. And there's this difference that I have that I'm feeling around like faith and conviction. And here's what I mean. There's this line, this really thin line where like I can feeling someone's deep faith and conviction in God and their connection to the divine. And the way I hold it is my connection with all that is, that I am what you said before, like I am a part of God, like God is within me. I feel that in my body. But what I'm noticing a lot in the online world and, just in the internets is this conviction slipping into the mental realm of like there's a deep conviction in what you think and what you believe is the truth, the ultimate truth. And so I'm noticing this like it's making me feel a little icky in my body. There's something around like when someone's like Jesus Christ is our savior and he's the one and that's it. And I'm like, "Wait, uh, uh, but then it gets confusing because I can feel the conviction in that person. I'm like, wow. And I remember when I was a bit more wobbly within this myself, I'm like, wow, I want that conviction. I want it. I want it for me. I want that conviction for me. So it's very tempting for me to be like, whatever this person believes in is what I'm going to believe because they've got conviction and I want conviction. But I'm noticing there's like a little bit of a is the best way I can describe it because of the conviction of I'm here and I'm connected and it's in my body, but that's a soul that's a soul vibration as opposed to a mental paradigm that you have concreted and are like this is it, which can serve. I think it serves a lot of people to have a concrete mental paradigm because from there you've got confidence, you've got like you know what to do, you know how to organize the rest of your 3D life. But it can get a little slippery. So do you know what I'm saying? Can you speak into what I'm saying? Because it's like it's the first
Yeah.
time I'm really articulating it out
Yeah.
loud to the public. So,
I'm gonna
yeah.
I'm gonna speak what I really feel, and there's probably gonna unravel like different layers of this conversation. So I'll just like dance here within this. When you said even like, feeling like more new age and like universe and crystals and all the things, I mean, I think again, everything's a journey. And so we're coming to things at different points, different energies, different belief codes, different past experiences. And so I often see like for me, really like, universe and crystals, like that was very much like a gateway, I would say, of coming into that deeper connection with God and that deeper faith and that deeper conviction. And I see too exactly what you're talking about here. And I feel like this is a time where people are really like coming forward with like, again, because their truth feels like such deep truth. And so it's like, okay, like this, and there almost is this essence of like right and wrong. And so like one thing's right, one thing's wrong. And I believe that Jesus, the energy of Jesus, the essence of Jesus is also in like, there is no right or wrong. There is no disconnection from God. So even when I heard you say that, like believing in Jesus and Jesus is your homie, and then hearing those words, and Jesus is the savior, I feel like there's that stickiness and that disconnect because I don't believe that's the truth of Jesus. I don't believe that Jesus is the savior because that to me allows us to buy into the illusion that we need to be saved, that there's something wrong, that we need to be fixed, that we don't have the power within us. And I feel that the message from God, from Jesus, I tap into a lot of Mary Magdalene essence as well, is actually in fact the complete opposite. Like there is like need is an illusion. The idea that sin exists is an illusion. The idea of punishment is an illusion. The idea that we need to be saved is an illusion. And so within this, it's like we can feel that, like, oh yeah, like that conviction feels so strong. But is that the thing that you actually resonate with as truth as well? And so for me, like, and people often ask me this, like, how do you have such a deep conviction? How do you have such deep faith? And it's because I went from outside to inside. And so connecting with, again, like God within, truly feeling like, I mean, the truth of what I experience is experience from Jesus's teachings and messages. It's all about the power of self, of who we are, who each and every one of us is in our divine nature. And to me, that relationship that can only come from like going deeper within self. It can't come from outside of self.
Mm. You know, I love this. I'm going to call myself out on something I noticed. I don't know if you picked up on this, but when I said Jesus is my homie, I kind of like there was a very split pause in my voice. And it's because in that moment, I wanted to speak into my love for Mary Magdalena, and I didn't say it because of everything we've been talking about, which is like, oh shit, if someone here is Christian and they're more like on the, conservative side, and I say this, it's not going to be good. It's going to piss someone off, right? And so in
Well,
that moment where I said Jesus is, I was like, oh, my homie. I'm just going to wrap this up here, and I'm not actually going to speak into because when I said that, the way I said it, for those with the untrained eye, would sound like, oh, this girl like kind of knows. It's like nobody actually knows how deep I've gone into this hole and how much I have been in the deep study of Christ consciousness and Mary Magdalene's teachings. And I've got all of that behind me. But again, in that moment, I'm like, let's just keep it simple.
well, here within that, so this is such, I mean, this is just like evidence. This is such an example of how truth frequency is felt. Like I very much knew, and I don't know this about you. Like you and I have never had a conversation. I don't know this about you, that there's a connection to Mary Magdalene energy. And it felt very clear to me as I was responding here and coming in. It's like bringing in God frequency, Jesus frequency, and Mary Magdalene. And so it's stepping in. Like I felt that within you without you bringing her energy or saying her name into this space. And it's like, this is it. Can we just stand in our truth, bring that to the forefront, allow it to unravel? And there are going to be people likely that listen that they're like, that's not my truth. And it's like, can we also allow that? Like now our job is not to go in to convince people about the essence of Mary Magdalene. It's speak freely, be free in our energy, and like allow people to receive in whatever ways, like this gets to meet you wherever you're at in your experience of God, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Christ consciousness.
Yeah, I love it. It's a really interesting moment because I'm literally like in real time playing out the thing that we've been talking about earlier on, because I noticed, when you were saying everyone has their journey. 1 year and a half ago, you and I couldn't have this conversation because I wouldn't have been able to be anchored in enough in my own relationship with God and the word God to be able to hold my own in having this conversation with you, much less even like challenge the things that I've challenged so far. Um, but and where I am in my Mary Magdalene journey, it's a little like I'm deep in it and not ready to be like, woo, hello everybody. Let me tell you like what I want to know. Like those are the pieces where it's still like deeply working me inside, and I'm still allowing myself to be transformed by it in a way that it's like still like the caterpillar inside, about to be a butterfly. So I really love this, I guess, real time example because it just shows the ways that what we believe in is what we believe in. And at the end of the day, it's really about what is that authentic truth that is within us, and how do we express that in a way that's stabilized. But just to kind of to wrap up what we were speaking about in terms of the conviction, the moments where I feel it's not fully, and I'll use myself as a guinea pig, for example, is like I remember a couple years ago watching this like really big influencer who like went new age spirituality, like to total born again Christian, and she's like, this is what it's like, this is what it is, and then she started building like her entire business around that, and she started building her entire like rebuilding everything, her social media presence around this conviction that Jesus is our savior, God is it, like this is my testimony. And as I was watching this, I remember in that time, I was feeling I was going through a transition in my business, and I was wobbling. And I was wobbling in certain areas of my life. And I thought, oh, maybe that's the answer. Maybe like if I just endorse that mental paradigm, then I will stabilize in my business, and I will stabilize in the parts of me that are like so quickly shifting. And so that's where I find it's like that's I think that's where I wanted to speak into, like, about this finding God from within rather than without, because I'm going to call myself out. I've done it, and I've definitely had more than a few conversations with both clients, colleagues, friends of they're like, "Ooh, this is a shiny object that, like, holds its own, and it's very concrete, and it feels like it's stable, and I don't feel stable inside. So, like, maybe if I take this belief system and I put it inside of me, I'll stabilize." But that's not it,
Yeah.
is it, Jaclyn?
No. No, and this is why, when I said like that, like Jesus as our savior energy, it's like, what's your connection to that essence? Like for me, he very much, again, the experience of Jesus is like, you are the way. So like you are the pathway. You are the pathway in your own growth. You are the pathway in your business. You are the pathway in your Christ consciousness. You are the pathway in your own journey. And so the pathway is within you. So looking at, where do I give the power outside? Where is it like, oh, well, wait a second. If I'm wobbly in here, let me go out there to find safety even. So this came up while you were talking about resistance, and it's coming back up. So I'm going to dive into it a little bit. It's like, okay, so I feel the resistance to something. And, I actually had this conversation recently with someone because I'm like, I'm always going to lean into the resistance. And I'm like, well, isn't the resistance often there to show you like that's not for you? And I'm like, there's a different feeling of like, there's just like a sacred no to that. Like, there's resistance here because it's uncomfortable, because I'm going to have to go deeper in, because there's something for me to like excavate here. But when we go in that way, that's ultimately where we create safety, because we create safety in self. Safety and for me, the energy that comes forward is like, I've got me, God's got me. It's like I'm willing to go into these depths in trust, in faith that there is something for me here to bring forward, to uncover. There's a deeper layer of remembrance here. And then I'm ultimately creating trust within myself, safety within myself. But if my safety is dependent on something outside of me because I'm following somebody else's pathway, and so I'm trusting in their journey, well, that takes me further, like disconnect from self. And so then I'm ultimately not feeling safe. Just in the same energy of, if I'm not willing to be the truth of who I am, if I'm not willing to speak my truth, well, I'm not ever going to feel safe within that, because I'm only giving parts of me or bits of me. And so the deeper we go within self, the more trust, the more faith, the more safety, like all of it gets created.
Gosh, what I love about what you're sharing is that it perfectly leads us into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is the God zone, right? We literally led with that. We've kept people in suspense this entire time. And I want to dive into that because this is literally going to be the title of the podcast. And so, we've now talked about God and what that means to us and the different ways that it can be held. And now it's like, okay, so what is the God zone? We've talked about this. I was in a program with you. For anyone who's never heard the term before, is like, what the heck is a God zone? Can you please explain it? Can we start by defining what we're about to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, the God zone for me is the zone where you come in and you lead from, you speak from, you live from, you operate from your deepest, most aligned, authentic truth. And so God zone for me is truth frequency. And when I connect into the essence of like the frequency of the God zone, there's also this knowing that we're never separate from. We're never separate from God. And it's like, what do I choose? Do I choose to operate from this knowing, from this divine truth of knowing that God's within me? Truth is within me. Sacred wisdom is within me. Am I operating from the truth of who I am versus, again, this conversation of like outside of self? Am I trusting in my own pathway versus somebody else's pathway? Or like you said, that shiny object over here, or they've got it and I don't. So God zone for me is understanding who you are, understanding who we all are, understanding that I am divine and you are divine, that we are human, that we are divine, that God is part of your makeup. Like you are God, God is you. And into that like deep connection of, when I operate from truth, when I operate in this frequency, when I'm operating, leading with truth, trust, faith, I'm never going to be led astray. And there's going to be moments from my human lens where it's going to feel like I am. there's going to be moments, and it doesn't, and I want to make this clear too. GodZone doesn't mean everything is just like unicorns and rainbows and butterflies and that there's not hard moments. We came here on a human experience to experience life as a human, to experience duality, to know love through also seeing hate, to know love through the experience of pain, and then looking from our lens of, okay, do I create, the experience of pain? What do we create from there? Do I create suffering because I judge the pain, or can I allow myself to experience pain and continue to operate from the God zone frequency? So it's like, yes, there's going to be moments of pain. There's going to be moments of heartbreak. There's going to be moments of trauma. And in that moment, can you continue to know who you are, to know who we all are as divine beings?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. And so this is beautiful. This is a beautiful way to describe it. And I could even like feel what you were saying as you were speaking. And now what I love to do is let's pull this down. I want to pull it down a little bit more and ground it into more practicality. If I'm a high performer and I'm listening to you saying, okay, great. That sounds great. God zone. All right. And I'm running my business. I'm a busy mom. I have a family. I got things to do. This sounds great. Great podcast, guys. But what? Now what? So I'd love to ground it into the felt experience of what does it mean and what does it look like to be in the God zone? And how do I know? Like, okay, I'm in it. And like right now, I'm not in it.
Yeah.
And what does it look like practically to be in this zone?
So the number one thing for me to like really, I'm gonna use the word monitor this, which feels like a weird energy to be like, oh, we can monitor this, but it's what it feels like when you say like, am I in the God zone? Am I not in the God zone? Do I feel like I'm in a place of personal power, or am I not in my power? Like that for me is it in like very simplicity. And I feel like this is easy. I'm gonna say easy enough for us to connect to. Like,
Mhm.
if you're operating from a place of your personal power or not. And when I say
Can
personal
you
power,
define, Jaclyn? Sorry to interrupt you, but for someone who's listening, that's like personal power, that's a vague term. Can you also like define what you mean when you say personal power?
yes, exactly. That's where I was literally just going. So personal power, meaning like, okay, do I feel like I'm operating in my truth? So personal power means like, am I saying yes to the things that I want to say yes to because I get to? Or is there this fear coming in? And even though I want to say yes, I fear like, oh, but will that be uncomfortable for my partner? If I say yes to that, well, can I hold that? If I say yes to that, like, who am I energy to does that come in? And so when I don't move on the things that I want to say yes to because I let these stories that I'm telling myself control me, well, I'm not in a place of operating from my personal power because I'm letting the story live. I'm letting the fear dictate my next move. Vice versa. Let's say that I feel like something's a no for me. Do I honor that, or do I go into people pleasing mode? Do I do things? Do I step outside my place of truth? And therefore, I start to leak energy. Where I leak energy, I leak personal power. Now, for many people, they have circumstantial power nailed. And so I feel, in my power. I feel like I can speak from a place of truth once I'm validated, once somebody else tells me I'm worthy, once I have the result, once this has happened. And this is where there's that disconnection from soul, disconnection from our personal power, because it's dependent then on something outside of you. It's dependent on, well, I'm going to give you an example right now. So I just recently wrote a book and it's not published yet. You can't buy it yet, but I just recently finished writing this book. And this book took me 8 years and 3 weeks to
Me
write.
too.
And I
I'm literally editing it right now. I had a call with like my editor yesterday. It's taken me 8 years.
okay, so
Look, my
here's
hair.
and why I'm gonna share this in this context. It took me 8 years, and I highlight the 8 years in 3 weeks because, I mean, right now we're in March of 2025. I landed here in Costa Rica in the jungle this year on January 7th. Now, Neil and I had a deadline for me to submit my book to him by my 44th birthday, which was January 30th. For 8 years, I tried to write this freaking book. And when I say I tried, it was like, it was trying energy. It was like let me write for a little bit. And then the resistance would come in and I was like, nope, 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 nope. And then I had so much resistance to freaking picking up a pen just a year ago. And I hand wrote this book. So like picking up the pen was like actually the thing. It wasn't opening my computer. It was like picking up a pen. And I had so much resistance. And until January 7th, when I landed here, and I really wrote this book, I would say in 3 weeks, because in January I decided I was a writer. But for 8 years, I told myself I wasn't a writer. And so I tried to write this book from an energy of I'm not a writer. And the thing is, within that, when we're talking personal power, I was like, somebody else could tell this better than me because I'm not a writer, because I don't have the perfect words, because I don't do this. And so the whole time I tried to write for 8 years, it was in the like, but it's not good enough energy. It was from this place of my words aren't powerful, or there's a more powerful way to say this, or there's something, do you know what I mean? And so I kept giving my power away, not even to anyone else specifically, but just in the idea of. And so I kept leaking energy for 8 years around this book until I actually decided, like, I'm a writer no matter what. I'm not waiting until Neil reads the book and tells me it's incredible and that makes me a writer. I'm not waiting until I have a publisher who says, I want to publish your book. I decided I was a writer. And in fact, before I even submitted my first book to Neil, I started writing my second book. I didn't wait for anything outside of me to decide I'm a writer. I felt the power in my words, the power in my truth. And I was like, I get to do this. I get to bring this to the world. And whether it's me and my mom who read this book, or whether it's the entire world who reads this book, like, I'm a writer. But I shifted into that place of power because I stopped waiting for something outside of me to tell me that I am.
I love this. Yeah.
Where do we go into this waiting energy? Where am I waiting for somebody else's like approval, someone else's like to lead the way? Like, if I decide that I am the way, that this is the pathway for me, can I just fully step in that full ownership? This to me brings in that deep conviction energy.
Hmm. Wow. I deeply love that you used exactly that example. I actually have a book 8 years as well. Different, a little slightly different story, but the punchline is the same. It was about because I had taken it to a traditional publisher and I wasn't. They kept wanting me to change it, and I didn't want to do it. So I took my book back, and I'm like, well, my book's not good enough for publishing because the traditional publishers don't want it unless I change the book. And I went through like this 2 year journey, coming up on 8 years now, like total of being like, this book can't be published because nobody wants it. And then I recently decided I want it. Even if
Yes.
if it's just one person that reads it, it's for me. And the moment I did that, I got connected to an editor, huge soul connection with, who's gonna help me. Like it's just like boom, boom, ding, 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 ding. This thing's gonna come out by the end of the year, if not early next year. So I love what you're saying because I completely relate to this feeling of I wasn't in my power. And you know what's really interesting is even when listening to you, because you know you're a powerful woman, and in this area of your life, the personal power was like beep, there was like a little wobble. And I think it's important to highlight this because a lot of people listening as well, they're powerful people, and we're powerful people, right? And so even with this thing around, I'm in my power in many things, but I wasn't in my power in this category of my life. And so even when I like to think about we think about personal power, I think it's like a lot. It's a big leap to be like, I'm gonna go from zero to like all the personal power. But the way I see it, and I'm hearing it in your story, is that, well, no, let's solidify, let's reclaim our power here, like in my love life. Then let's work on money. Then let's work on the book. Then let's work on business. I'm like, and then you're like, I almost see like you're reassembling, you're remembering, yourself and plugging back in and going back to that God zone topic. It's like the more of you that you're reclaiming back to you, that you're gonna be able to like connect deeper to the God zone. So, anyways, without further ado, tell us more about the God zone, how it practically plays out in our life.
Well, there's I might not even answer your question yet, so you might have to ask again because there's two other things that I really want to highlight here in what you've just shared. And part of it, the second piece, is that like your power and your willingness. But the first thing that I want to say when you said this about like for me, this is why I say it's harnessing your personal power. It's not like, and I'm just in my power and I stay there and like all is now well and perfect in my world. It's like, yeah, there's a journey of harnessing our personal power. And I think the biggest thing that takes us out of this God zone frequency and being in our power is that in the moments where we do have these power leaks, these energy leaks, the moments where we forget who we are, we tend to make that mean something and we go into the feelings of shame and guilt and oh, like I'm back here again, and we make ourselves wrong and then we beat ourselves up over it versus saying like, yeah, I'm human and I'm having human thoughts and human fears and a human experience and human moments, and I'm having, the moments where I forget, which do like can I celebrate the moments where I forget who I am because it leads to the deeper remembrance. I really want to highlight this because when we're having this conversation around personal power and God's own frequency, like know that you're also human. You're gonna still lash out at your partner on in certain moments. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have human experiences. And what do you choose from there? Like, can you choose to come into deeper remembrance, or are you gonna go into a place where you punish yourself? That was one thing I wanted to highlight. Then I wanted to share, when you said, um, not being in your power in a sense around writing this book. Also, this willingness frequency that I felt within you and like this amount of power. So you are seeing the aspect, and you brought forth the aspect of the lens not in your power. And what I felt so deeply is like you were so in your power that you weren't willing to compromise the book. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to go down that pathway because I'm not willing to change my words. And so I'm more willing to go on this pathway, and I'm more willing to, like, if it only reaches one person, like, to trust in that. And obviously when that happens, it's like you are going to reach way more than one person with your book because you stood in conviction of self, trust in self. This is exactly how I feel about my book. It's funny enough, I thought for 8 years I'm going to have somebody else like edit it and do this and probably rewrite the whole thing. And then I wasn't even willing. Like Neil wanted me to have it edited before I sent it to him, and I wasn't even willing to do that because I was like, I want my raw words to reach his ears. Like I want that depth of truth. And so again, this journey of like, can I trust in exactly the way that I bring things forward? Can I trust in, what I know? And so I love this for you that you stood in that, like, I'm not willing to change this book. And this does remind me of a something else that Neil had shared with me, because we've talked about him so much. I'll just share this aspect. Like when he first went to a publisher, they were like, we'll write this or we'll publish this as fiction. Like we'll publish this as fiction because no one's gonna ever believe that this was like a real experience in your life. And he was like, took the book back and he's like, no, thank you very much. Like they're like, we'll publish it right now. At that point, he had no idea if it was ever going to be published, but he wasn't willing to publish it in this energy and in an untruth of saying like that this wasn't a real experience that happened. And like that's that level of like power. And I just felt that within you. And I really wanted to acknowledge that before we went into your question that I don't remember now.
Thank you. No, it's beautiful. Damn, go Neil. I didn't know it was nonfiction. That is badass. My question was, and I think it's related to what. Thank you so much for. I feel really. Thank you. I'm receiving that.
Hey,
I
hold
didn't
on,
see
wait.
it that way.
So wait, did I say that backwards? Did I say that backwards when you said nonfiction? Like,
It no, you said they were going to publish it as fiction, but it's not fiction.
yes, 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 yes. Okay,
But
I
you
wasn't
said it
sure if I
correctly,
okay.
which means it's
When you said that first,
nonfiction. So it's
yeah,
published as nonfiction.
yes.
So I didn't know that. I was just expressing like, wow, I didn't realize it was, I didn't even, that's not even a thought in my head because I just kind of bought it. I didn't go to the bookstore. So I didn't even think that it would be in the nonfiction area, but that makes complete sense. Now you said it perfectly. And how incredible these moments, where we shame ourselves, we punish ourselves, we take ourselves out of the God zone when actually it's just a frame. Like even the frame you just gave me was such a beautiful example. I think about it, in ways when I'm coaching clients or in my own journey with business where I would say no. I remember a year and a half ago, I completely, I stopped my online course business because I'm like, this is not in alignment to me. And then obviously when I did that, there was an income dip as a result of that. And I remember like making it mean something about myself and having that little moment of like, oh, it means I'm not a good business person. I'm not this, I'm not that. And then as I journeyed with the emotions and I brought myself back into my seat of power, I realized that, well, the whole time it was actually me being in truth with myself and being in integrity with myself, and then choosing something that temporarily made less money but was actually feeling like good for my spirit. And there's so many conversations where or like, I've had clients, I've coached clients who had to leave certain partners that were exhibiting toxic behaviors. And at the time it's like, yeah, but he was gonna, like, we were gonna get married and we are gonna, like, we're gonna have kids. And it was like, I had the thing and now I'm single again and I'm like this old, but it's like, but this is in alignment with your spirit. And then once you drop the story that this is not, this is means something about you. When you drop the story and you literally step back into the God zone, then boom, like things start to flow again. So bringing us back into the question, it's the practicalities. How do I know? So we started to talk about personal power. And one of the things, just to repeat back for the listener, because we've gone in a few different directions, is that to be in the God zone is to be like, be holding, like harnessing your personal power. You are in your power when you are in the God zone. And so if we can continue to almost create a practical guide for the listener, of what, okay, now here's you being in your God zone and here's you not being in your God zone. So when that person is quote unquote monitoring themselves, they're like, oh shoot, I got out. Let me plug back in. But how? So it's the practical
Yeah.
guide.
Yeah. So the how for me is like, again, there's got to be the coming into the remembrance of who you are and whatever way in which like that happens for you. And so for me, I really connect to a lot of, spiritual texts, like books like Conversations with God. It again reminds me like in an instant who I am. And so coming into that space where it's like, okay, I've forgotten, I've stepped out of the God zone and I've, went down this pathway where I thought somebody else knew better than me and I've leaked my energy. Like, how can I come into that deep remembrance of who I am? That's number one for me. And maybe it's listening to this podcast. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's sitting in deep silence with self, but having like almost like little like tools and ways that you're like, oh yeah, I can come into this deep remembrance. And then the biggest thing for me is always going to be to like continue to move in the God zone frequency is this willingness, energy. And this is just the word for me. It's like my willingness to follow my soul, to follow each and every soul nudge, to listen to that intuition, to decide like, okay, I felt this ping and it's not silly. It's not silly when I am like, oh, I should drive down this road, but I normally drive down this road. It's like, I listen to those soul nudges on big things, on small things, and really making this like I want to say like a craft, like really moving in this way for self, noticing where you go to your mind to make your decisions versus like listening to that nudge within your soul, listening to that sacred whisper, listening to that voice within you. It's like, can I actually stay out of my mind when I'm making decisions, which is not how we've been taught. We've been taught to weigh the pros and cons. We've been taught to analyze things and overthink these and things and make sure you're making the right choice. That to me is also where we tend to get out of the God zone because then we're basing our choices and our decisions around what makes sense, what's practical, where we can see that leading. And when I say that takes us out of the God zone, because that takes us away from like, again, just following this like truth that exists within us. And so the truth within you is not going to be found within your mind.
Hmm. Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, my experience, to mirror that and give it even more practical examples. My experience of the God zone. I was having this conversation with a client the other day because, for years now, she has been resisting um, her morning practice and her evening practice and, having those moments in between of like reconnection. I've been working her with for a couple of years, mostly on, business coaching and things like that and mindset. And then something just dropped in because it's like a conversation that we've had again and again and again. But, you're ready when you're ready. And I'm sure you know this with your clients as well. And she's like, okay, I'm really like, what's going on? Why am I not able to do my practice in the morning? And it was the same conversation, but held from a different perspective and a different level of awareness that she had within herself now, which basically the punchline is that she thought she had to do these things because she had to do it because it was the right thing to do for her to be like centered and to feel calm and to feel peaceful and aligned. She has to do her morning meditation. But actually what this is an opportunity for you to take a moment and plug back
Yes.
into your divinity, plug back into your center. It's like, oops, I got disconnected. Oh shoot, like I had to make breakfast for my kids, or like I had to go rush and pick up something from the store, and then the checkout lady was kind of rude to me, and I got like like I kind of disassembled. And so that moment of I'm gonna sit outside, put my bum on the grass and just take a few deep breaths and like connect and do my soul alignment meditation. It's like tick. It's just it's the socket came out, the thing came out of the socket. Let's plug back in. Oh shoot, I did it again. Plug back in. And when we develop a practice to stay plugged in, it becomes more difficult. So for like now for her, what I was the example, the metaphor I was using is that in the past couple of years, it's like any little thing and the it unplugs. Like if someone walks by and they trip on it, it unplugs. If you sneeze, it unplugs, you know, but now it's about strengthening that connection. And the more you have it in, the more you get to stay plugged in. And then it really takes a lot to unplug you. And that's the way that I relate to the God zone in myself is how can I stay plugged in? And so practically speaking, when I wake up in the morning, I've gone through this entire subconscious reprogramming process on myself where I used to wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I need to do this. I need to shower. I need to go there. And I retrained myself so that those first thoughts in the morning on autopilot, it's like, God, it's another beautiful day. Oh my God, my sheets feel amazing. Wow, I'm so happy to be alive. And those are the first thoughts that come in. And that's how I'm like, good morning, God. Good morning. And then, you know, I sit down and I do my morning practice. I don't look at my phone, connection with no one else but me and God. I plug it in. And then when I'm in that state, then I move. And then when I get unplugged, it's like, maybe don't answer this email right now. Maybe now is the moment to take a walk at the park, go to nature, plug back in, and then I move. And one of the biggest shifts that happened in my both personal and entrepreneurial journey is that I realized that it's a freaking waste of time for me to move when I'm not plugged in.
Oh,
I'm just doing stuff from a stressed out state, which means I'm not thinking as clearly. My body's jacked up from all the hormones, biochemicals that my unprocessed emotions are releasing in my nervous system. I'm not seeing clearly. I'm not in neutrality. I'm reacting to my triggers. And
yeah.
therefore, anything I do from that space is going to be a mirror of that state. And so it's such a crazy thing to grasp. It took me a long time for me to really get it, even though I read the books, I studied with Dr. Joe Dispenza. I did the corporate trainings and the certifications and da 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 da. But then it came to a point where I'm like, this is literally not a good use of my time. And then I got it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. There's the difference of getting things like up here. Like I can get it in the mind, I get it conceptually versus like embodying it and living this way and breathing this way and operating this way. And like everything you just said there, it's like, if I'm gonna do things from any other nature, like that's where you're not even operating in your truth. And so that's creates that opposing energy. That's when we create more of what we don't want to experience because we're operating from a place that's not rooted in truth. It's not rooted in truth frequency. So you're operating from reaction, you're operating from trigger, you're operating from past evidence, you're operating from what your mind knows, you're operating from the story. That means we're operating from a field of limitation. And I want to highlight this like so deeply, and you shared this, and it's like so beautiful. Again, it's not the like anything that you've experienced outside. It's not the certifications, it's not the this, it's what you then do with it. And it's not about having a morning practice where you're like, oh, check, did my meditation. Oh, check, read 10 pages of my book. Oh, yeah, check, drank my water. If that's the energy that you're doing it from, because it's like, well, now I'm a good girl. Now I did all the things. Like, and this is what it felt like when you said this with your client. It's like, that like because that's not true plugging in. It's not true plugging in if you're doing it in order to like if you're doing it in order to like get that validation, in order to then believe, okay, well now maybe God can answer my prayer because I've done all of the things and I did it the right way. It's like, no, it's about tapping into that divine truth, that divine essence, that divine wisdom within you that I feel like we only really truly tune in when we're in the moments of like stillness and silence and being. And when I say only, like you also can be out surfing a wave and be connected to God and in that God's own frequency and hear the voice of God. So I don't mean from like you need to like literally sit in stillness, but you need to be out of your mind from the sense of not plugging into other people's stories, other people's beliefs, your own past beliefs or the things that you have evidence for. It's like, can I be so rooted in the ethers of the now? Like, can I be so rooted into this present moment and tuning into the way that my body's communicating to me right now, tuning into where I'm following the should pathway, tuning into where, again, I'm going outside of myself and therefore leaking power.
Hmm.
Can I come back to self? And this is what I felt as you talked about, your morning practice. It's like, can I come back to self? again and again and again and again so that this place truly represents like home. It represents truth, like
Mm.
that choice to come back to self again and again and again because you know that you are the way, you are the pathway.
Beautiful. I love that. And you know what you reminded me of in that same conversation where that I was having with this client, she had this massive breakthrough and she said to me what I'll share with you because it was so deep and exactly touching on what you're saying. She said, "You know, Celine, I have spent my entire life praying to God and thinking, you know, doing feeling like I'm doing a really good job. I'm being grateful and thanking God and I'm not begging God. I'm really devoted to praying to God, but I don't spend much time listening." Get even like truth bomb says I like she would
Yes.
yeah, that's it. You know, that's great. You know, when your clients teach you things, it was
Yeah.
like one of those moments. I'm like, thank you for that beautiful reminder. She said, I haven't spent much time listening. And what I'm hearing you say, she said to me, is that when I am doing these meditation practices, I am learning to listen. So I can not only give out and pray, but also receive the answers within myself from that place of stillness, from that place of truth. And
Yes.
what I'd love to ask you here and what I'd love to pull on here is, you know, this entire episode we've talked about the truth frequency, like being in the God zone is being a truth frequency and being in your truth. And just so we don't leave any stones unturned here, I want to unpack this one because I would love to hear your thoughts on how does one know they are in their truth frequency. And you know that the short answer is it's a feeling. And but if we can elaborate on how do we feel, how do we know that gnosis, that yes, this is my truth, as opposed to accidentally slipping into reinforcing our thought forms, belief systems, and patterns of behavior. Because this is where, you know, especially in my work with help supporting people through navigating their subconscious mind, there's a line and we know ultimately the true frequency is the true frequency, but when people, in my experience, when people haven't reinforced the feeling of this is the truth frequency, when they don't know that frequency yet enough in their body to just immediately recognize it and have the courage to be like this and no to everything else, right? It's a bit of a journey because what tends to happen, and I notice a lot in those beginning stages, it's a bit of, oh, this is my truth. But actually, it's a belief system. This is my
Yeah.
truth. But actually, it's a thought form that someone else that they accepted as true because of the way that they grew up or because of the way they were conditioned. It's a belief system, but actually what it is, it's something that you've been doing consistently for the last 20 years. And so you think it's truth, but it's not. And, you know, ultimately, you will only know, no one can tell you what your truth is. However, if you can speak into for people in their journey who, you know, like right now, if you tell me truth frequency, I'm like, yeah, like I got it. It's in.
Yeah.
And if it's not
Yeah.
true frequency, I can feel it immediately.
Yeah.
But that was a journey because if you talked to me 5 years ago, I will kind of know, I could feel it, but I'd be like, but like how? So can you unpack that one a little bit more?
Yeah, and this, I think I actually started to allude to this in the last part where we were talking about like really being in the now moment, like being in that present moment and then being aware of our thoughts, being aware of the belief systems. And so I call this sitting in sacred witness of self. And so noticing if I'm like right here in the now frequency, I'll question my thoughts. I'll question that thing that I'm about to go do. And I'll question it from the lens of literally asking myself, is this true? Is this is this a lie that I'm telling myself? And I use the word lie for myself because like that actually feels powerful. And then I like try to catch myself in a lie when I sit in sacred witness in the sense of having that deep awareness of like, okay, this is what I'm about to do. This is what I'm feeling like is truth or correct for me. Is it really? Or am I bringing in a past story? Am I bringing in a past belief code? And so I'll ask myself the question like, is this true right now? Like, and from the space of like, can I absolutely say without a doubt that this is also like true tomorrow? And if I can't, it's like, well, why am I hanging on to that untruth? So if I give you an example, and a money example is coming to me. So someone will say to me, like, I am just like, I can't figure out like money in my life. Like, it's like I'm always broke. Well, is that true right now in this moment? And they can be like, well, I'm looking at my bank account right now. And yes, my bank account says there's $0 in it. So that is true. Like I am broke. Okay, can you prove that that's gonna be true tomorrow? Well, I'll go up to my mind and like, well, predictably, like this is what happens, and then predictably like this, and predictably that. Okay, so predictably, but is it true? Is it true that you're gonna be broke tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and the day after tomorrow? Well, no. So if that doesn't serve you to have that thought, to have that belief code, like this is where we've got to sit in self and be willing to change because everything shifts and everything changes in your experiencing from your beliefs. But it's got to go from belief to knowing to experiencing. And so saying, I believe that money could show up in my bank account tomorrow, but then if I'm telling myself, but yeah, right, because like that's never happened to you before and that happens to other people, but like you're destined to be broke your whole life, I can have the like, oh, but it's possible, like maybe money's going to be in my bank account tomorrow, but again, that's not in truth's frequency. And so then we have to go from the like, okay, I'm telling myself stories, I'm telling myself lies, and so I'm going to leave that belief system, but then what? Like what comes in between the belief and the experiencing is this knowing. So this is where we've got to plug back into knowing who we are, knowing that God is abundant. We live in an abundant universe, knowing that what happened yesterday does not dictate to what comes tomorrow, knowing who you are as a powerful creator. Like this type of energy is what it's about for me. So that I don't just it's like I come into such awareness of where I'm telling myself old stories, where I'm letting myself live from a place of past conditioning, past evidence, past truths, past lies, past stories, and bringing it into this now energy of, okay, if I don't absolutely know without a doubt that that has to be the story tomorrow, then I'm no longer willing to bring it forward. I'm no longer willing to bring it into right now.
Mhm. Beautiful. I love this. Very beautifully explained because what I'm hearing and, I've, I am hearing a lot, like, some of the work that Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches as well. I'm licensed as one of his consultants, and so, like, I really love I can already literally see, like, the brain waves as you're speaking, the science and neuroscience behind it of just when I remember in my journey, it's I would opt consciously opt to believe in things, read the books, go to the workshops, listen to the people whose belief systems aligned with the quality of life, the kind of life that I wanted to live. When I was not yet living that life, I would listen, 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 believe, like, okay, I'll take this belief system. I'll put this one in my pocket. I'll put this one in my pocket. But in my journey, there was a jump that needed to be taken from belief to knowing where there was a moment where I had to decide I knew this was possible for me rather than, oh,
Yes.
these are great belief systems. There was a moment where I had to transition into, I know this is for me. And that level of conviction is a journey within self. And then there's this from this knowing, there was a moment where I had to have the courage and cultivate the courage to take the action to create the experience, to put myself out there, to say the thing, to create the podcast, to, create the course, the program, whatever. I had to pitch the offer. There was a moment where I had to go from, I know this is possible for me. I know what I have to say matters to like, now I'm experiencing what it's like to put it out there and receive, an exchange, energetic, financial, whatever opportunity, like to like be in connection to this experience, this felt experience in my life, which then in turn creates the life that I now live. And I
Mm.
noticed that a lot of times in people's journeys, the cognitive dissonance happens when they have the beliefs and they want the experience, but they're not willing to get to, like, you got to go through the knowing. You can't
Yes.
skip steps. And that's one
Yes.
of the things that I've noticed in our journey. It's like, we want to, oh, you want to be black belt? You want to be a freaking badass at the thing that you're doing? You got to get to the yellow. I don't even know the sequence, but you got to work your way up. Like, you've got to get some belts. It's not just like, oh, I'm a white belt, but here's like all this money for this course. And like, I'm gonna read all the books and I'm gonna show up, but like, belt me. No, it's like, you go and then you go and then you mess up and then you do the thing, but you need to you need to know you can do it. Number one, you need to know what's possible for you. And then you need to go through the experience of actually moving through time, space in this realm, at least
Yeah.
to actually like arrive at in that place.
And that's that edge there, right? Like, that's that edge, and that can feel very, like, vulnerable, and that can feel confronting, and that can feel confusing, and that can feel like, "But wait, am I, like, going down the right pathway?" But it's like we wanted to go from belief to experiencing and then be like, oh, well, now that I've experienced, now that I have the evidence, now I can know, now I can trust. But that's not knowing. That's not trust. The knowing and the trust has to come before the experience. Like you become the creator of the evidence. And within this sense, it's like, yeah, this is, this often is like the hard work that we go into because it's like recoding this, looking at where I'm operating from past triggers, past experiences, what I've been taught, what I've been told, the conditioning. And can I come into this place of knowing, like you said, that deciding energy, like knowing that I'm a powerful creator, knowing that when I decide, that's like the potent frequency here. And so it's not in this, like, let me just wait, let me hang out, like move into like that level of bravery, like the bravery that it takes to start the podcast, to record it for the first time, the bravery that it takes to like do the thing in alignment with that which you say you want, that which you're manifesting, that which you're calling forth. It's like it's not going into force doing and making happen, but this is where I said it's following then those soul nudges, even though you don't know how it's going to turn out, like
Mhm.
being attached in that sense.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from everything you've said up until this point is that the thing you said, but you didn't say, is that in this journey, to go to black belt, you don't skip steps. But if you want to be a high achiever and accelerate your process, you stay in the motherfucking God zone.
Yes,
You move, you
yes,
move from
yes,
the God zone
yeah,
if you want to actually go quote unquote faster. That's that's the real trick. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna like hack the system or like try to skip steps or like make friends with the right people. I mean, all of that works short term, but
yeah.
the sustainable, fulfilling, this is freaking real, real, real from the true frequency accelerator button is move from the God zone. So learn how to stay in it.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. I
We
love it.
that felt like a natural conclusion. I'm like, I am satiated. I don't know about you. Like I feel complete.
I feel like, yeah, this conversation has been epic and it feels complete. And I'm so thankful that we just allowed ourselves to come and show up and follow the threads. Like, it feels like just divine perfection.
Yeah, and this is like but for anyone's listening, this is the first time I'm having a conversation with Jaclyn, by the way. Like literally like a few text exchanges and this is it. So we're just getting to know each other in real time. I love it. It's super magical.
Well, I felt that essence right when you were introducing this podcast too. You said like, and this just felt like if we were going to have a conversation, it was meant to be heard. It was not just meant to be between you and I. And so I'm so happy that we recorded and that we did this. And thank
Yeah.
you for
Yeah,
having me.
of course, of course. Beautiful. Well, as we begin to wrap up today's episode, Jaclyn, do you have any final words for the listener that you want to share? And also, all of this is going to be linked in the show notes. But how do we find you?
You find me, I mean, my favorite
Other
place is
than,
all,
the God zone.
yeah. So just enter the God Zone and I'll be there, right there, ready for you. My podcast is like my number one place that I love to come and have like these depth of conversations. So it's called the Jaclyn Shaw Show, and then social media like Instagram, Facebook, mostly Instagram for me. Um, those are really the places. And when you say like any final words, I mean, the biggest thing that just feels like coming through, we've talked about so much of it, but like trust that you've got you. Like trust that trust in what you feel inside, trust in like that calling within you. And even though it may not make sense, even though you won't have all the pieces, even though, up here, up in our mind, it may not make sense in that way, trust in the journey. Trust like as I take the next step beyond that gets revealed. But you've got to start taking those steps, like start moving towards and allow the other pieces to be revealed, allow it to unravel.
Beautiful. I love it. And friends, for those of you, you've made it this far, you enjoy the podcasts. If there's anything in here that you absolutely love, any concept, don't be shy, screenshot it. Let me and Jaclyn know, tag us, on social media and let us know what you most loved about this episode. So without further ado, thank you so much, Jaclyn, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you, beautiful humans, for tuning into today's episode of It's Not What You Think. If you loved what you received today, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts as it helps us reach even more amazing listeners like you. If we aren't already connected on social media, come receive even more tips and inspiration by following me on Instagram at Celine DaCosta or visiting my website at celinedacosta.com. After listening to this episode, I invite you to take a few moments to reflect. What stood out to you? What were your key takeaways or breakthroughs? And if there was one action step you could take from this, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to connect in the next episode. Until then, keep sharing your unique gifts and living out your most magical life.